So my first time being locked up in a city jail was Rikers Island. It was pretty scary being a young person there. It was just built on a system of brutality. So as soon as you come into the door, they're like, we're the toughest ones. You have to follow these rules, do this, that, and the third. And it becomes scary because this is a jail at one point in time held 30,000 people. So it felt like you were just fluctuating through a population. It was a different feeling seeing different boroughs and different people from different communities all trapped in the same space. 30,000 people on any given day is a large amount of population of people. And then it was different buildings. You had OBCC, you had C74, we had adolescents, and it was a mixture of different people from doing state time to long time. You had people coming down from upstate going to court. And so it became a place where I would have been there for like 90 days or 6 months. But the guy next door to me is doing 5 years. This guy's coming down from a life sentence on the other side of me. And so it was a mixed population where any given day can cost you more time in jail. This system of incarceration was established before the state was even established. And so you had Ellis Island and you had Rikers Island, where people would be sort of deported up into the other states, into these new facilities that were being created. Now, most of those facilities were created to hold Southern Civil War citizens. So like Auburn Correctional Facility still has a statue of a Southern soldier on the top of it because the facility was created to sort of incarcerate those who were in the Civil War. But what was happening is that Alexander Riker, who actually got the island from his ancestors, was capturing people and sending them back to slavery because he was a slave catcher. And so Rikers Island was known for capturing people of color and then sort of bringing them back to slavery, selling them back to the South. During the 80s and the 90s, when mass incarceration really soared, we've seen a 400% increase of people incarcerated, mostly people of color. During that time frame, you had Reaganomics, which was considered Ronald Reagan, who was the president, who was sort of not only building more jails in California, building more jails in America, building more jails in the states that he controlled as the senator, but once he became president, he took it on a national scale. One thing he did was cut community-based funding for law enforcement facilities and then created this war on drugs by also cutting community-based funding for mental health facilities. So in the 80s and 90s, you had people who were mentally ill, needing support, used to being on medication, isolated from society, just walking around the streets. Oh, and then mysteriously, crack hits the streets. So now you have a cheap synthetic drug that you can self-medicate on, and then we create a war on those very drugs. And then every president after that, up until Clinton, literally increased the crime ratio. When you're talking about mass incarceration, you're talking about how people break laws. But what are those laws establishing? How are those laws created? The prison system is made up of a business. When you think about how prisons make money, one, the consensus tells us where people are from and where they live at, right? The consensus is like a national sort of survey that we take every year. That allows the government to say, well, we're going to invest about $50,000 to $60,000 per person, depending on their income in that community. So when a person is taken from that county and moved to another county, the money that they support them with moves to that county, right? So you made that community may depend on that person's citizenship to get them millions of dollars, but that millions of dollars is now going to a prison town. So a town like Attica could have 10,000 black people that live in the town, but they don't live in the town. They live in a jail in the town. And so now that town gets minority-based loans. That town gets more congressional representation. As a matter of fact, you get more schools, you get more roads, you get more funding for things you need in that town because your population is built off people in the prison in that town. Now, on top of that, you have prison labor, which is free work. So bakeries, clothing, McDonald's, private industries that make and need those materials made will go to prison labor. In America, when you think about potatoes, mostly people think about, oh, potatoes come from Idaho. Every potato in America and Idaho is grown in prison. Victoria's Secret, McDonald's, ShopRite, Walmart, all of these companies hire their uniforms buy their goods, their merchandise is in prison. I spent most of my adult life as a young man on this island here, several times incarcerated over several sentences. I think the system of seeing young people incarcerated and things that they were going through, and the system of violence that was perpetuated onto people incarcerated. So not only are you in jail, but you're going to be beat, you're going to be assaulted, you're going to be verbally reprimanded, you're going to be dealt with in such a way that it constituted like slavery. Seeing people die because of fights, jail fights, seeing the COs cover up suicides, even though they were murdered, those type of things stuck with me. Like on Rikers, I seen the police beat a man, just beat him unconsciously, selflessly, bloody, dragged him back in his cell, and then 2 days later he died because they just left him there from internal bleeding, right? I seen a person with their cell set on fire. Like literally people would put gas and oil, which they got from the mechanic shop, into balloons, put that into their cell, splash their cell, and then set them on fire. It felt like I'm not free. I'm still in court. I have another court date to go back to court in November. And so this sort of system of perpetual punishment still happens once you leave jail. Leaving jail is just the first part. So to me, freedom is not only being out of the physical space, but having the ability to be a full citizen, which I never will be. Because felonies in America are forever. It's not only a form of slavery when you look at race-wise, when you look at class-wise, all the people in prison are mostly poor.